lesson. So I'm going to be
Thank
quiet and let
you.
her talk from beautiful California.
Thank you so much, Kathy. So when Kathy asked me to do this program, there's so much out there about leadership, just in general, right? Let alone for women. But I felt like it's important to kind of tell my story. I get the most out of hearing what people have done individually to kind of scale. I mean, it's really about scaling, right? Your platform, whatever that platform looks like. And I'm most interested in like, what were the things that inspired them, or how did they build their career? Like what spoke to them? So this slide deck's really personal for me. And I'm hoping you get at least something out of it. But it's really my story and the people that have inspired me along the way and mentored me and given me opportunities when, I didn't know how to kind of move forward sometimes and open certain doors for me. So I've always been ambitious. I've been willing to work hard. I've had the grit. I've had all that. But you need people to see that in you and to believe in you and to give you those opportunities. So this slide deck is, like I said, very, very personal to me. It's my own story. And I've broken it into sort of different categories that we'll go through today. But I call it Be Heard, Finding Your Voice. And this little graphic is something that came to me a few years ago. I was thinking about a herd of elephants and how lady elephants sort of all work together and they stick together as a group and support each other. But there's always a leader in the group, right? There's sort of somebody that kind of takes the herd in a certain direction. And to me, she was that one that stands out. So that's the pink elephant there in the middle. And I think it's so important as women that one, we find our voice, and that we're heard and respected, right? So that in any space that we operate, our voice has meaning and we're able to use it for change. But it takes a moment to find our voice. It doesn't just come naturally. And you got to have the confidence and how do we build that confidence? Where does that come from? It's not something they necessarily teach in school, right? It's something that you learn through practice and trial and error and winning and sometimes losing. And so I felt like that was appropriate for a business women's group. So I'll go ahead and get started on this. I call this the voice of wisdom, Legacy Speaks. And as you see here, it's a lady paddleboarding. And I think legacy is really important. And I'll talk a little bit about the people in my family that have inspired me. But that voice from my grandmother, primarily Ruby Creech, and my father, who actually just passed away in October. So it's been an interesting journey to process his death and how that has sort of impacted me. But that voice of wisdom and that voice of legacy is sort of the beginning of kind of how we form ourselves, right? It's our parents and it's the people that kind of touch us as children and the messages they give us about who we are. And they can be good messages and sometimes they can be bad messages. And we often react either way to what that messaging is. But in my case, I felt very fortunate to have this lady, Ruby Creech, who's my grandmother. And I'm hoping everybody can see the screen okay. But she used to always say to me, she said, if it is to be, it is up to me. And in any card for any birthday or graduation, my entire childhood, that was the message she gave me. And, Ruby was a standout for me because she, back in the 50s, had become a realtor. She left my grandfather, who I never knew. She was in Illinois. My dad was 12. He went out to work one day. I understand he wasn't the greatest guy. And she sold everything that she had. And she went and bought this T-Bird, this convertible T-Bird, and put her children in it and drove to California and reinvented herself and became this really successful California realtor. And eventually went on to help run the Miss America beauty pageant. So became very successful as a businesswoman at a time where there wasn't necessarily a lot of women in business, and women certainly weren't necessarily respected in business. And so having this sort of matriarch in my family who constantly reinforced for me how important it was to know that if I wanted to do anything in life, I had to be the one responsible for making that happen. And that's really what it is, like simply put, right? Like nobody's going to do it for you. But I think that sort of reminder and messaging helped me at so many different times in my life when I was graduating high school and trying to decide about college. And I moved from Northern California, where I was raised, to Virginia, where my mother had family, and ended up going to college in Virginia. And I left everything I knew and all my friends. And I just had that sort of sense, that sort of gumption about the fact that I needed a new opportunity and I wanted to be in a place that would challenge me, really challenge me, which being on the East Coast when you're raised in a Northern California small community is very different. But it challenged me in all the right ways. But really, if it is to be, it is up to me was really important and kind of that messaging for me. And then the other big influence in my life has been my father. Um, he was a surfer, and at 21 won the Florida State surfing championship. So he's a big athlete. He was an entrepreneur. He was a complicated man, but he was also an incredible man, a real visionary, and a real entrepreneur. And he always taught me that life's about balance and patience, but really about catching the sort of metaphorical wave. And that really stuck with me because you don't want to jump at every opportunity, right? Not every opportunity is the right opportunity. And taking a pause and taking a moment and finding that sort of that right wave is really important. And as a child, he used to take me out into the ocean, and we'd surf together, and we'd sit, and you have to wait. So the sets of waves come in, and there's like 10 waves to every set. And typically at the end of 10 waves, that last wave it's a really big wave, and it can be a great wave, right? If you're not fearful and you're willing to catch it. But if you jump at the small ones at the beginning, right, the ride really isn't that great. I mean, it's a wave and you can take it into shore, but it's not that great. And so that just really stuck with me, that take a moment, wait for the right opportunity. And when you've got that wave, that really good one, don't be afraid, like get up on your board and go for it. And so I think the practice of surfing actually sunk into sort of my subconscious, but it's definitely guided me in terms of my decision-making processes. So a lot of respect for my father for teaching me those early lessons in life. So voice of experience is, I think, an important category for me and for any of us to really consider. And I call it mentors speak. And so I think mentors are really crucial in our lives, and they come in different shapes and sizes and at different times in our lives, but specifically for women, and specifically for women in business, seeking out other women who have been able to blaze a trail or get ahead in a career field, who are willing to kind of look back and give us a hand, and sort of qualify our skills and help us believe in ourselves is super crucial, super critical. And so I've sort of broken out mentors that I've had, and they haven't all been women. In fact, my first mentor was Sam Park. I have him there as professional leadership. I was in my mid 20s, and I had just graduated college. And I graduated college, got married, and 2 weeks later got pregnant with twins. So I just like did it all once in like 4 months. And so by the time I'd been out of school, not even a year, I had twin infant boys. That was something. But I was still like completely committed to my career. And so Sam saw that about me, and I was the director of marketing for a Whole Foods up in Northern Virginia. And he said, we're going to get you a laptop. You can work from home, And the funniest thing he ever said when the boys were like 2, he's like, well, if you need to work outside and take them to the park and let them play, that's fine. You can just work with your computer while they're climbing the monkey bars. And I thought, clearly this man doesn't raise his own children. But the reality is, right, he wanted to be flexible and give me that opportunity to scale my career while still being able to try to balance being a mother of young children. And that was really important, because some leaders would have been like, no, you're here, you're 9 to 5, that's it. You can't, this job's not available to you if you don't play within a certain sort of framework. And he was always willing to see that I had a certain talent and passion, and work with me on that, which was, huge. It gave me a lot of confidence and got me going in my career. I put Sarah Kinney on there, corporate leadership. I got a job at corporate for Whole Foods by the time I was 27. So I was basically under her leadership running sub-regions of about 8 to 10 stores, all their marketing and outreach programs, all of their store openings. I would fly to Atlanta. There was mornings I'd fly down to North Carolina and run meetings in the Chapel Hill area, get my kids off to the sitter, and then like fly home and still try to make dinner. Like that was the life at that time. But Sarah, again, made it possible for me to juggle being a mom and a professional, and seeing that talent in me and that drive in me and being accommodating, which was really important. Again, it helped build that confidence. I put Sarah Tremaine because when I did get into nonprofit here in Charlottesville, she was the board chair for the nonprofit I worked at. It was the Charlottesville Waldorf School. And we were doing this Greenest School in America campaign. And I never worked a nonprofit. Like, I honestly didn't know a thing about nonprofit. I sort of parlayed from a business marketing, public relations background to this nonprofit role. And she, again, just really took the time to teach me how to do board work, how to organize boards, how to think about private philanthropy and fundraising, how to think about programmatic impact. And, at the time, at least, they didn't really teach a degree in nonprofit leadership. Now, of course, there's all kinds of graduate courses and work that you can do and degrees you can get in it. But at the time there really wasn't. And so she was really great in terms of helping me with that. And I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to, I'll hurry this up a bit. Joyce Pastors was great for me in my faith life. I sang in a band at my church for about 10 years, and she was one of the elders in my church and just always helped me prioritize my faith life and was there to make sure I was able to balance that kind of I guess need or responsibility with family life and be able to help me prioritize that, which was an incredibly important part of my life for many years and still is. And then Cynthia Simpson, she's the one that is over here with this black hat on. I call her the mean Greek. She's Greek and she is mean, but she is so good about really kind of teaching me how to be strong, how to have good boundaries, how to say no, how to be able to assert myself, both in my personal relationships and professional relationships. And just really cemented that sense of being a sort of a strong woman and gave me some real tangible skills to do that. And lastly, Marshall Pryor. Marshall is a great man. He's in his 70s now, but he started the Community Foundation here in Charlottesville. He started the Blue Ridge Mountain Rotary Club, of which I'm a member, and I've been on the board for 8 years. And he just has taken the time to really teach me the ins and outs of the community, the different nonprofits and sort of the history around the nonprofit sector, and connect me to folks in the community that have been a great support to my career. So just a real community leader. So the bottom line is mentors. They come in different shapes, sizes, and ages, but they're really critical in your journey as a woman leader. Voice of inspiration. I've always felt that it's incredibly important to be inspired by others, and Maya Angelou is definitely one of my ladies that inspires me. I was in college when I first saw her perform. She came on a stage, and in the first 10 minutes, she sang a song in 7 different languages, and I was done. It's like, you've got my respect. Okay. Like, that's incredible. Right. And her struggle and what she went through in her life is so intense. And yet she created this beautiful life and inspired so many women with her quotes. And I love this one. Each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing the possibility, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. And so I've often read her poetry and quoted her poetry throughout my life and my career. It's been a great comfort. Winston Churchill, when I was 15, went to England and traveled through England, and I made a point of going to Winston Churchill's home and to his library. I wanted to see what he read. I mean, you know, to become the great strategist that he was, what inspired Winston Churchill. And I've always been inspired about how his mind worked. And yeah, it was all, of course, around World War II, and he was, you know, a military commander, but he's an incredible strategist, and his work has always inspired me in terms of thinking about how we operate organizations, or how we operate even people, or how we mobilize around concepts and get people to agree and to be able to create change. And lastly, Steve Jobs. You know, he's a complicated character, right? You hear good stuff and bad stuff, but I loved his all of his work around this idea of dogma, that we don't need to follow other people's way of operating to be able to create a project or a program or the life we want, right? Like, we have the opportunity to be creative and to be free and to think about things and frame things in a way that makes sense to us. And he did a commencement speech, 2005, Stanford University, that I encourage all of you to read, that really speaks to that. And I put this up here, Man in the Arena, Theodore Roosevelt. I encourage you to read it if you have a moment. It's really about, it's easy to sit on the sidelines and criticize. It's a lot tougher to get into the arena, to get into something. And yeah, it might be dirty and hard, and people might be judging you from the sidelines, but like, you're doing the work. Like, do the work. So important. No matter how hard it is, do the work. And this quote over here that Theodore Roosevelt, Man in the Arena, really spoke to me around that. So I encourage you to read that. Inner voice, I'll just say that goal setting is really important for me. Every year I do a vision board. Sometimes they're a little bit more colorful than other years, but as you can see here, it's sort of an annual redefining of my life's vision. Like, my life's vision that's really important to me. And I didn't really start this work till I was in my 40s. I wish I had started it in my 20s. And I usually break it out by like faith and family and friends and travel and finances and sort of all those main categories in our life that we want to be thoughtful about. But I will tell you, like, 80 to 90% of the time, minus COVID, let's just be honest, 2020 is a wash, right? Like, everything was helter skelter. I had to cancel all my trips, but including to Paris, super disappointing. But this is really important for me because it helps me kind of lay out what I want to do that year. And then I'm able to go out throughout the year and I kind of go back to it. And I'm like, where am I at with it? And am I meeting these goals that I set for myself? And it's a kind of a nice reminder. So even if you aren't crafty or artsy, that's okay. You don't need to be. Just go ahead and get out cards and pictures and quotes and things that inspire you, and just start, start with something basic, but start. Do something that helps inspire you and keeps you on track for sort of that vision for your life. Expressive voice, I just go back to have fun. Like, life is short. Don't take it all so seriously. For me, it's travel. It's going out and seeing art, beautiful art, going to museums. I'm big into gardens. In fact, when I get off this call, we're going to go over to UC Santa Cruz and go through the Arboretum. They have an incredible 10-acre horticulturalist farm here that I'm super excited to go see. And that inspires me, like that feeds me. I work really hard, and it's important for me to find that balance of beauty. And I put interesting people, like surround yourself with people that have that curiosity for life, that love of life. I think that's so critical to having that fun. You got to have fun, right? Like it's you don't want it to be a drag. So whatever that looks like for you, whatever that expressive voice looks like for you, I encourage you to think about it that way. So just voice of care, super important for me as well. So resilient self-care yoga. And about 41, I started a yoga practice. My doctor literally said, you're so stressed out and you have so much anxiety, either I'm going to put you on medication and you're going to live with medication for anxiety, or you're going to figure stuff out. Like, you're going to do something different. So he prescribed yoga, if that's even possible. So I went for about 90 days and I hated it. I hated it. But nearly 5 years later, it's a part of my weekly practice, and I just make time for it. I put it on the schedule. It's like an appointment, and I don't skip it for the most part. It's got to be really important. Even when I travel, I have my app and I do yoga. And I guess really we talk about self-care, and all my lady friends, it's like, God, I'm so busy, especially when you have children, right? Like, how do you possibly squeeze it in? But, I would say to you, like, how can you not squeeze it in? Like, it's the most important thing you'll do. So put it on the calendar. And I've added a meditation practice. So every day I do about 10 minutes of meditation. It helps me focus. It helps me with my breathing. It's really critical. It helps center me, which is so important. Voice of soul, I just, encourage people to consider. It doesn't, this is not to say you have to be a Christian or whatever your religious background. It's just about faith. It's about what is your faith walk and how does that look for you? And I encourage people to take a moment for that in their life. And for me, this quote of living in faith, not in fear. I mean, there's so many unknowns that we can't control in our lives, and that can produce a lot of anxiety, frankly. And it certainly has for myself in the past. And my faith has been the thing that really grounds me, that no matter what I'm going through, if I can go back to my faith, I feel like I'm good, I'm solid. And it's really finding your connection to soul life, whatever that looks like for you. Voice of compassion. So, obviously I work in the nonprofit sector, so I'm really committed to the nonprofit community. You don't have to be to get involved. I think volunteering and giving of yourself in support of somebody else in that altruistic way is really critical and transformative. It's changed my life. I started volunteering when I was in my early 30s, when I had 3 young children. It was tough. I worked on the park board in Crozet for 7 years to put a dome over the pool and build what became the first YMCA. This was, years before I went on to help them build the one in McIntyre Park. But just knowing I was making a difference and affecting my community in a positive way and helping others was really the point. Service above self is the motto over at Rotary. I've just finished up being the president of Rotary, which was an incredible experience. Again, it's mostly older men. People are right when they think that, but we've slowly but surely been carving out a space for women and even diversity. And this year I'll be the assistant governor. So I'll actually be helping to run the whole, region. And it's important work. It's about giving back to others, service above self, that little motto, saying that I have there, and then giving back in whatever way that looks for you. I know we're coming up, it's getting almost to my 30 minutes. So voice of heart, family life. As you can see there, those are my baby twins. That's me leaving the hospital at 25, having zero idea about what I was about to get into, like zero. My boys are now 22 and my daughter just turned 18. So fast forward all these years later, but I have this little quote here: expect the unexpected, change is the only thing you can count on, and you can do many things, but not all at once. I used to think I had to do it all the time, like superwoman syndrome. And over time, I've come to realize, like, some days you're going to be an incredible mom if you choose to have a family, or incredible at whatever you do in your personal life, partner, wife. And other days you're not, right? Like you're not going to be amazing in your home life, but you might like kill it at work. Like you're going to just like kill a presentation. Or a proposal, right? But it's not going to all happen all at once all the time, and that's okay, right? Like taking a moment to just accept that, and know that that's okay. And the importance of family, like how critical it is to obviously have family in our lives. Voice of courage. It just takes courage. Life takes courage. Being a professional takes courage. Being a woman in business takes courage. Let's be honest. So I have this little quote I love: success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Again, that Winston Churchill quote. And that's what it's all about for me. It's about having the courage. It's not that you're going to hit it out of the park every day or all the time, or that you're going to always be amazing, because you won't be, right? We're not always amazing. But if you have the courage to show up, that's half the battle. So just remembering that. Voice in professional life. These are sort of some high notes just that I've always lived by, like create your position. So from the very youngest I can remember out of the box from college, I've always created the position that I really wanted. When I got to corporate, there was no part-time position. There was no 30-hour position for that work I did as their, on the marketing team. But I advocated, I'm like, I have a young family, being a mom's important. What if I do 3 10-hour days? Like, can you work with me on that? And they did. So advocate, define your work experience, set your salary. That's one thing women, gosh, like we inadvertently discount ourselves. And it's like, no, like you go in there and you know what you're worth, and you let people know that this is what I need. This is what it's going to take for me to be a part of your team. And do your homework, go on Glassdoor, whatever it takes, figure out what the fair range is that a man earns. And then you go in there and you ask for it. You're totally worth it. So really important. Don't let anybody define what you're capable of. People love to tell you who they think you are when it's really just a reflection of who they are. So be really mindful of that. I've had to learn that the hard way over my life. Keep one hand on the stars and one on the earth. That's a big one for me, i.e. have vision, but stay grounded, right? Like you can't always be living in a dream world about all the amazing things you want to create without sort of the reality of what it takes. So try to be mindful of both. And then leap of faith, it can be your best option. So I love that graphic because it's this lady just sort of taking her leap of faith, not knowing necessarily like where she's going to land, but knowing it's maybe better than where she's at. And this last little quote, this is Steve Jobs. I won't read it, but it's basically about don't waste your life living it don't waste it living somebody else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. So that's a big one for me. This is the last slide. I put Joan of Arc up there because she's like one of these sort of original strong women, right? I'm not afraid. I was born to do this. And so I'll just end with that. Don't be afraid. Know who you are. Use your voice. Have the courage, and the success will follow. Now, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you so much. I appreciate you giving quotes from Steve Jobs. You're right. He's complicated. I think one of my favorite Steve Jobs quotes is he talks about, hey, we're all going to die. What do you have to be afraid of?
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
As
he just has some really good insights, right? Like he is a complicated guy. A lot of people say he's kind of a jerk, right? But he had this sort of vision for his life, and the way he operated it. There's some good lessons we can take from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I realized that it's 1:30.
It is. Tried to end at 1:30. I didn't leave